Welcome, everyone, to Self-Care in Stressful Times. We are so happy that you have joined us today. And what a beautiful day. I'm so deeply grateful to see so much growth happening all around us in nature right now. I'm hearing all these beautiful birds outside my window and seeing the new buds on the trees and things. So it's wonderful that our topic today is learning and growing. So we know that these are indeed challenging times, right? It's unsettling. There's some potential of hope around the bend in the future, but many of us are still struggling with all of the challenges of this time of pandemic and the added stress and the stress of the changes, even as we try to navigate going back and creating a different life than we had before, but re-entering in some ways with folks getting vaccines and other things. Change creates stress. So we are here today to give you some really wonderful tools and have a conversation about learning and growing. You see, our mission of Leap to Success is to educate and empower women who are overcoming domestic violence, homelessness, and any other major life challenge to reach their greatest potential. So woven into our mission is a great value of learning and growing. We do that both as a staff as well as each of the participants that comes in through our program has that willingness. And our affirmation today, which has really been guiding. We have a beautiful calendar and our affirmations have been guiding what the theme is for each month. So the theme for the month of April is I am able to learn and grow. And I think that's the most exciting thing as an instructor for the classes that we teach is to see each woman come in with that yearning. I'm able to learn and grow. When we hold that as a perspective, we have so much possibility for change, right? It creates a sense of possibility and hopefulness. So we love seeing that in our participants, and we are always cultivating that in ourselves and in our organizations. And I'm thrilled to have Alyssa with me today as my co-host and partner in having this conversation, but we want you to participate. So we hope that you will add things into the chat so we can expand this and have it be a really dynamic conversation. Now, the whole purpose of creating this Self-Care in Stressful Times webinar series was to support our community partners, to support our graduates, support those people in the community that are doing really important work and could use having 30 minutes to just focus on themselves and refuel and refresh and rejuvenate. So we are so glad that you have chosen to do that and join us, whether you're joining us live or whether you're joining us on our Facebook or afterwards on YouTube. The whole idea is that you are prioritizing yourself. You are giving yourself permission to take a pause, to really refill, so that when you're out sharing your life energy in the world, it is filled up and shining brightly. So we really, really appreciate that, that you would take the time to be with us. So thank you so much. I love this theme of I'm able to learn and grow. And I would just like to tell you that as a staff, we are continuing to, we always share new books, articles, information. We are continually wanting to learn and grow so that we can make our programs more and more effective and supportive to our participants. And friends, we learn so much from our participants. We have both all the lessons that people share with us that they've learned in our classes, but also in our weekly empowerment circles that our graduates are invited to. There's such a wealth of wisdom from what people have overcome, right? There is such potential of all of us learning to cultivate more and more resilience as we learn from each other, and we take a pause to reflect on what we've learned about ourselves. So we're going to do some of both today, and I am going to start, as we always do, by doing a assessment of your current level of stress. I'm going to ask Alyssa to put the poll up, and if you could rate your current level of stress, that would be helpful not only for us but for you. If you have a perspective of where you're at right now, And then you can use some different tools and strategies we teach and then reflect later if they were effective or not. That really gives you a sense of, I think, the why you show up here and what difference it's making for you. We want to be sure that anything that we do has a positive effect in the community. And so I thank you so much for sharing those. And as soon as I see the results, it looks like it's kind of mixed. We have some people that are up to an 8 and a 9, so feeling really the pressures of things, and then we have some down in the 4 through 2 level of stress area. So we have quite a mix, and I hope that each and every one of you are able to take something from this conversation that will inspire you and also enrich your life. And we're going to start, as we often do, with a grounding technique, some way to have a mindfulness practice that can allow you to settle in, to decompress if you were up in those higher levels of stress, to bring it down, and if your stress is lower, to come home to yourself. That process over and over again of reconnecting to ourselves so we can listen to all of the wisdom inside. And part of that is a major lesson for many of us on this journey. So I invite you to close your eyes, settle into your chair. Sometimes I like to literally move around in my chair to really settle in. And with all mindfulness practices, I invite you to bring in a spirit of curiosity and non-judgment. And for a moment, just simply notice how it feels to pause. Notice how it feels to be sitting where you are. Allow yourself to feel the support. Really feel the support of the earth underneath your feet, of the chair underneath you, or wherever it is that you're sitting. And now let's take 3 full body breaths in through our nose, and then exhale through your mouth. When we exhale through our mouth, it actually gives our amygdala permission just to relax. It's kind of a reminder that we're safe in this moment. And so we can let our nervous system settle. So if you ever find that you're feeling a little more anxious, just exhale out through your mouth and that'll really support you. So now take a moment to do a body scan. Notice if there's any place in this moment that you're holding any tension or tightness. Often when we pause, we have an opportunity, right, to learn what's happening in our bodies, the way we don't when we're rushing through our day. If you find you have any tension any place, commonly our shoulders, maybe you have some tension in your jaw or your neck, see if you can give those parts of your body permission just to relax. Maybe on your next exhale, you can allow your shoulders to soften down a bit, down your back. You might have noticed that you had some pain or discomfort in your body in this moment. And so I invite you just to breathe some more compassion and kindness to those areas. And on our next inhale, let's breathe in a deep sense of gratitude for these bodies. These bodies that do so much for us all the time. Now, I want to invite you to really settle in and to feel a sense of calm, a sense of safety, this sense of coming home to yourself, that in this moment, that everything is well, that all is well in this moment. And I want to ask you to think about some challenge that you've overcome, maybe during this pandemic. Maybe it was, being able to teach your kids from home as well as work. It was in some part of the transition, caring for somebody in a distance or staying connected to family and friends, whatever that was. We're going to look at what we've learned with the intention that we're actively cultivating resilience in this moment. So now that you have an idea of some challenge that you've overcome, think about what skill or tool you use to overcome it. Think about what you learned about yourself as a result. Identify how you're stronger and wiser as a result of having overcome that challenge. Now I invite you to place your hand on your heart, and in this moment, acknowledge gratitude for all that you learned through that difficult situation, and also how much you have grown as a result. Breathe in that sense of gratitude. Gratitude for your resilience. Gratitude for your qualities that helped you navigate that challenging situation. Gratitude for the tools and skills you developed and the confidence that you have in yourself as a result. And let's take 3 more breaths in and out, really allowing that gratitude to emanate out from us, out into our lives. Knowing that even in difficulty, there is something that we can control, and that's what we learn from the challenge. We can feel really empowered knowing that that is something that we can put our attention to, even in the challenging times. And that as a result, we can find something to ground ourselves in gratitude about. When you're ready, I invite you to allow your eyes to open. Thank you so much for going through that mindfulness practice with me. I thought it would be important because we really want to ground all of these practices and how we nurture ourselves is absolutely through learning and growing. And that's the foundation of cultivating confidence and resilience in the world. We see that when people are overcoming trauma and they're healing from trauma, they need a couple of things. 1, they need to know they're not alone. 2, they need to learn a new skill or tool. And the third thing that's really helpful in healing trauma is to give some meaning to their experience. So I'm so grateful that in all of the programs that we teach for our organization, that's the foundation of it. It's really reminding people they're not alone, continuing to develop these tools. And the giving meaning is, particularly in what we've overcome, is if I can see myself as stronger and wiser because I've overcome something, that gives meaning to my experience. And it's really powerful how that can change everything. And I love that we're, really dedicated to doing that both as a staff as well as with our participants. And so I am so excited that Alyssa Jenkins is joining me today so that we can have this conversation about how she's been learning and growing, how I've been learning and growing, and then to invite you in. So welcome, Alyssa. Thanks so much for joining me with this conversation today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be part of it. in front of the camera this time, not
Yeah,
behind.
oh, I know. It's wonderful. So, one of my first questions to you, and that I've really been thinking about, and certainly we've been talking with our participants about a lot, is how have you been learning and growing during the pandemic?
Yeah, it's so many different ways, I think. Well, because for me, and as you were saying, I think a lot of our Leap to Success staff, like growth is almost like one of our core values, like internally and externally, and how we operate. So I feel like it's something that I'm always doing. But then, like, especially during the pandemic, just getting more intentional with it because um, like you can get stuck in that initial kind of like fear and the fight or flight, but then you have a decision that you can make to like grow from that or grow within that, and figuring out how to adapt and learning how you're resilient. And it's kind of the only way to survive is to learn and grow. So um yeah,
Well,
specifically how though, I think a lot of it's been in my identity. Like I've been learning a lot about myself over this past year. Um, yeah.
absolutely. And I was just thinking as you were talking how much we have learned to adapt as an organization, right? We didn't do anything online before. We would do maybe some beautiful videos that we would share, but we weren't having, ongoing classes like we have. We weren't doing this webinar. So we've learned so much, haven't we, Alyssa?
Yes. In a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what I love about coming from a growth mindset, and we're going to continue through this month looking at lots of different ways of learning and growing, but really having that growth mindset that we don't have to be perfect.
Hmm.
But this is really about progress, not perfection. So as we try something new, we don't have to have all of the, information we need to take a step to do it. That's been
Hmm.
very liberating for me. I think that's one
Yeah.
of the things that I've learned is I'm going to learn and grow as I take inspired steps to do things. I don't have to have it all worked out beforehand. And that's been really liberating.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely something I knew in my head, like going into 2020, but I actually got to see how that played out when, as we were figuring out video courses, and we're like, no, we can put this out and we can see what works and we can change it. And that's good. And that's part of the process. So, yeah,
And
definitely.
I think too, because we're in such a, like we've never experienced this before.
Hmm.
And so I always look at those things as adaptive challenges, right? We can't use the same tactical solutions because we haven't been here before. So it's
Hmm.
really been a joy to be in community with you and with our other staff at Leap to Success, and also our participants and graduates to figure out how we can keep growing and offering what we do to wider and wider circles if we can't be in the classroom. So I'm really grateful for that. What I know that we have offered a few different books over time as ways of learning, and one of them has been Life is in the Transitions by Bruce Feiler. I know we've shared that on some of these Self Care in Stressful Times series. We've, as staff, read this. Are there other books that have been inspiring to you during this pandemic that you've been reading?
Yeah, I actually I've been reading a lot more like either autobiographies or kind of like historical fiction. Like I know you gave me that one book called Pachinko by Minjin Lee
Oh,
from
yeah.
like 2019. I finally read it. And so learning more about other cultures. And I just finished reading autobiography from a woman who's a North Korean defector, and like learning about her life in North Korea and coming to the US. And that one was just crazy because she's the age of like my middle sister. So like being able to compare like her timeline to like, I was like, oh my gosh, when she was going through that, I was going through this like in my life. And I think just like really getting that wider perspective of like how different people live has been kind of a focus in the books that I've been reading lately.
I love that. I love that. And I know for me, I have been listening to a lot of books on Audible. that seems to be a really good way for me, whether I'm taking walks or I'm doing other things as well. And so, oh my gosh, I've been reading so many amazing books on anti-racism, from Caste, which is a remarkable book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. I'm reading right now, or I'm listening to Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man, just so outstanding. And I've been so grateful for Audible. And I wonder if there's other books that people have been really inspired by who are on the webinar today who would share with us, and that we can continue. I love that how you do our social media and share forth to other people. So if you have books that have really been meaningful to you, we would love to hear about them and share them. Like, this is, a way that we can continue to learn and grow from each other. So books, I know for me, are super inspiring, both fiction and nonfiction. As
Hmm.
you're saying, some of it's memoirs, other of it is really beautifully researched books, can
Yeah.
transport you,
Yeah.
and your perspective for
Yeah.
sure.
Typically, I'm a really big fantasy genre person too.
Mhm.
I write in that genre and I love reading in that genre. Um, yeah. And I think those can teach a lot too, even though it's fiction. I think a lot of fictional books are really good at kind of getting to the heart of like what it means to be human and like different struggles that we experience. But a lot of times it's can just be like exaggerated or explored in a way that we can't really explore in real life. So,
Yeah, that's such a wise perspective. And I think that's why I love historic fiction,
mhm.
because I'm always learning things not only about the human experience, but also where it fits in history. So, yeah. Are there podcasts or other things that you listen to that you're inspired by?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit random to my life right now, but there's this one podcast that I've listened to a lot over the years called The Shalene Show. And it's run by this woman named Shalene Johnson. She's like an eight-figure earning entrepreneur, and she's done all kinds of things from like health research to like building business. But she just recently, her and her husband became a caregiver for her father-in-law who has like stage 5 Alzheimer's right now. And I don't know why, but I've just been like super drawn into her experience. So I've been learning a lot about like what it's like to be a caregiver to someone who's dealing with dementia, um and it kind of helped me in my like it's sort of weird. I have a dog who's aging. Ever since listening to these podcasts and things, I'm seeing like some like, oh, my dog sort of like struggles with some of those things. And so I've actually been using some tactics to like help calm her down. Even though she's a dog and not a person. But it's just been interesting.
Well, and what I'm hearing from you also is that when we learn things, when we apply them in our lives, they're even more meaningful, right?
Mhm.
I mean, we see that all the time with participants that go through our Leap to Confidence program. If you don't use the tools, they aren't going to be effective. So I'm very inspired when I learn something to put it into practice right away too. One of the podcasts that I love is the Brene Brown Unpacking Us. She's had the most amazing authors. And it's been so fun to, listen to the interview first and then go out and get the book, and read the book after. So that's been really, I think she started it right at the beginning. I think she had recorded her first couple right before the pandemic. And so it's been a really wonderful way to continue to learn and grow and connect. It looks like there's some other ones of books that are inspiring. Somebody just shared Your True Home by Thich Nhat Hanh. 365 quotes of hope and positivity. And Thich Nhat Hanh is an amazing teacher of mine. He is a Buddhist teacher who has a monastery at Deer Park, which is just in
Mm.
Escondido, and also Plum Village, which is in France. And
Okay.
he is one of the most prolific authors. And I know we've shared many of his quotes because he's like
Yeah. I
so well.
might have to get that book just for like our social media purposes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
We use his quotes
so
a lot.
Yeah. And speaking of meditation, one of the things that I've really enjoyed in learning is, we've been doing mindfulness practices in everything that we've been teaching. So all of our classes, our empowerment circles, we've been doing them here. So expanding out, but Insight Timer, which is one of the apps that I really enjoy. At the beginning of the year, they had their meditation teachers teaching what their morning practices look like. So they did like a morning practice, 31-day challenge, which I loved, but it was so fun. If I've been listening to guided meditations from different folks, for them to really talk through what they do for themselves.
Mm,
That's been a really wonderful thing. And what I've learned is from other people is how important it is to have a practice and to try new things. I like variety,
yeah.
so it's been really fun to do that. So one of the things, because my next question to you is, what have you learned that's important to you
Yeah.
that maybe you didn't know before with this pandemic?
Yeah.
What would you say that you've learned?
Actually, on the topic of morning routines, that is one thing that I've kind of learned about myself because, like, I need one, but I have a really hard time sticking with one for more than like 2 or 3 weeks at a time. And that's something that I didn't really know about myself. So, like, finding ways to like tweak it and still have routine, but like keep a variety, like in order to like help me feel refreshed and engaged and all of that. That's been a very something I learned. And I think also for me, like the importance of relationships
Yes.
and like really being intentional about cultivating friendships because in the past, that was something that I was kind of like, oh, like if we don't contact each other, like that's fine, but now, like, I really, really learned in 2020 how important it is to stay connected with people and to find ways to make sure that you're still in contact because we need people in our lives.
Absolutely. And it's, really been highlighted since we don't have the ease of getting together in the ways that we have before. I
Mhm.
think the biggest thing that I've learned is how important it is for me to stay in the present moment.
Mm,
You referred to fear and how there's so much uncertainty still. It would be easy to get caught in, how's this going to work out and doing all that planning stuff, and instead just be, stay really present and play more and
mm.
have more fun and bring in more joy to balance out because there's lots of grief and there's lots of loss and there's lots of disappointments still that we're holding too. I'm not ignoring any of that, but just really aware of how important it is for me to actively cultivate joy in my life. That's been a real lesson that I've learned
Yeah.
uh, as well. Are there any other tools and strategies that you want to share that have been really helpful to you in learning and growing this pandemic?
Yeah, one of the things that so I am like a big learning person, as I said before. I like to find ways to like challenge my brain, like grow my brain and stuff. So I thought now would be a really good time to try to learn a new language. I used to live in South Korea. I lived there for a year teaching English as a second language, and I never like really learned the language. And that's something that I had always wished I had done. So I've found a couple like language learning apps that have like really help promote the learning. One of them is super cool. It's called Language Drops, and it's just purely about building vocabulary because that's kind of the first step to fluency in any language is knowing the words that you can use. And it's just like a matching game, and it has stuff on there for you can do it for 5 minutes on the free version before it times out, and then you're done with for the day. So you can't get like totally sucked into it, but you're doing a little bit every day to learn, and it feels like a game, so you're incorporating play. So that has been a really, really fun learning tool.
Oh, I
I've been
love it.
using.
I love any of those things. And I think we're so fortunate to have so many different ways, apps, whether you're going to YouTube to learn something, there's been so many workshops online. There's so many different ways. I know Insight Timer, when the pandemic started, they had 40,000 free guided meditations. Now it's like 80 and it keeps
Oh,
expanding because people are just sharing more and more and more.
mm,
So, I hope that folks have found something that they want to incorporate in. And I don't know if anybody would be willing before we end the webinar to share, what is one new way that you are going to learn and grow in April? What's just one new thing that you're going to incorporate in to your life to learn and grow? I saw some really great book titles that Alyssa's going to capture that you shared and we'll share with other folks. But what's one new thing? I know that when we make a commitment and we say it out loud, we have more opportunity to follow through with that. So, Alyssa, what's one new thing you're going to do?
One new thing. I think it's not new, but I want to continue it more consistently is the language learning, because it's something I started off really strong with, and then I would like to make that like consistently part of my morning routine. So
Yeah, that's
that's I'm committing
beautiful.
to that in April.
Excellent, excellent. Love it. It looks like someone else said that they're going to take time to take deep breaths. And that's wonderful. Doing that pause and just, doing that. Someone else shared that they're going to follow through with the tapping app. And we've shared about emotional freedom technique or tapping. So utilizing things that we already have. I think that's really for me is my goal is I have lots of different, apps and other things that I want to just start to have part of my daily practice. So it might be a different one each day, but finding some way to connect with that. And someone else said that they're gonna go check out some suggested readings and apps too, and they're excited about that. And that's the energy of learning and growing. That's what I love about being part of Leap to Success and being part of these self-care webinars. So thank you all so much. We'd love, as we always do, to find out where things stand for you around your stress right now. So Alyssa's going to put up the poll, and we're going to ask you, what is your current level of stress? Share, if you would, that with us. We're grateful, and we know that 30 minutes might not dissolve all your stress, but if you have some really concrete ways that you can continue to nurture, you can continue to refresh and revitalize yourself, we know over time that you will feel more grounded, more calm, and more peaceful. So it looks like we have 2 people still up at an 8, but some of them have come down and we're between a 5 and a 1. It looks like the majority as a 2. So thank you all so much. I want to share as we're ending this great quote from Forrest Whitaker. And he says, I try to be like a forest, revitalizing and constantly growing. That's what we invite you into, friends. Please find ways to continue to revitalize and constantly grow. And we look forward to you joining us next week. I believe next week's topic is growth mindset. So we're going to continue to look at this and look at how a growth mindset then informs our ability to continue to be resilient. Thank you so much for being here. Alyssa, it was a joy. Thank you so much. This was really fun. Be safe and well, friends, and take good care. Bye-bye.